Welcome back to our program. Rathi Jafer is the director of the Indo-Korean Cultural Center here in Chennai. She's making a very delightful guest here. Rathi, you've been involved with stuff like this and, activities between different countries for a long time. So let's backtrack a bit in your own career.
It's about 15 years, I think, roughly. The first stint was with the British Council. This was almost as soon as I got back from the UK after my studies there. And it was a delightful 10 years, linking India and the UK through the arts. So again, looking at ways in which we could meaningfully link the two countries and continue a dialogue through the visual and performing arts. And in 2006, I had this call out of the blue to say, would you like to come to an interview which is about setting up an Indo-Korean cultural center?
Totally different.
Totally different, right. And completely looking east,
yes.
After looking west, particularly at Britain. And having professionally and academically engaged with the UK, I thought that this would be a very interesting challenge to unlearn some stuff and to learn quite a lot of other new things.
Is it different here? Is it different to be dealing with a country like South Korea?
I think it's very different and it's quite the same. And if I can just explain what I mean
Please.
by that. I think it's similar because the kind of work that you do in terms of linking artists, linking organizations, working in the same ambit of arts and culture, it's quite similar strategies that one would employ. But I think how you go about employing that would be very different. Not the least because I think there is a language issue. I don't speak Korean as yet, just survival Korean.
Really?
A couple of words which get me by. But I hope at some time in the future to learn the language. But the meetings usually go through with an interpreter. It's very smooth, it's very, very instantaneous. So there is no real block or obstacle there. But personally, I found that I need to listen very differently. I need to collate information very differently. I need to communicate very differently, just in the interest of being clear and just in the interest of us being on the same page when we are discussing issues. Also, there is a great degree of precision, which I think it's been a huge learning experience for me. When we're using only English as a medium of communication with no other language coming in between, sometimes you can speak in half sentences and you can be sure
That's
you're
right.
understood. But here there is a requirement for us to be extremely
Specific.
precise,
And
extremely
very
specific.
yes.
And so the transaction is very different, I think. But what I've enjoyed most is the manner in which this precision carries over into all areas of work. So there's precision in terms of time management, there's precision in terms of agreements, there's an unspoken rule in terms of, hierarchy and politeness and how one understands, goes beneath language really, maybe
Right.
beneath and beyond is the word.
Right.
So that's been a very, very interesting experience. And as I said, we're still on that journey.
Right.
Still very young with it, I think.
Rathi, we often hear about the discipline that the South Koreans display. Now, you are closely involved with South Koreans. Is this a fact?
It is, and I think it's a very admirable fact in the manner in which they bring that discipline to bear right from little children who come in for drawing classes.
Really?
We have calligraphy classes at Inco Center, so you could see that from a moment a task is entrusted to somebody, the amount of focus and discipline that comes into it. And we often speak with colleagues at work that I think in India we are very adept at finding 2 or 3 different ways of doing things. We're quite circular in the way in which we work. So if we were able to marry that strength, which I think is a strength, because
yes.
we do need it when sometimes infrastructure lets us
We are
down.
flexible.
We're very, very flexible.
Yes.
So the linearity which is there with the way in which Koreans work, or in fact it's quite a global thing, I think. If we're able to marry this flexibility or this adaptability which we have with that ability to stay disciplined and be on time. I mean, they are obsessed with time, I think, and rightly so.
That's a wonderful thing.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
So you can be sure that meetings start up on time, end on time, that when somebody says that they will meet you, they will meet you. So cancellations are quite rare, and there is almost a sort of zero-level tolerance to uncertainty. And again, I think this is an area which I'm really interested in, getting more interested in, the idea of cultural competence when we deal with countries different from our own. So
Yes.
I think we have a very high level of tolerance for uncertainty. And
That's not a good thing. I don't think that's a very good thing.
Well, again, I think it's about how we can turn that around to our advantage. I think
yes,
so.
That's right.
But then there's bound to be communication problems and difficulties when a country with zero level tolerance and 100% tolerance interact.
Must be clashes quite often.
Clashes if we are not clear in the way in which we communicate, I think. And clashes also if we are, unless we're able to open ourselves out in terms of having no cultural prejudices when we interact. So even the kind of programs we bring, we're always looking at how will it cross over from the particular to the universal. How will it work when you're bringing something which, let's say a Korean pansori singer, which is their traditional singer, one singer with a drummer, a person playing a drum. And it's a little similar to the kind of Villapatu scenario that we had. So you're telling a story. It's very folk. It's almost anarchic because sometimes through humor you're kind of debunking traditions, debunking structures. Now, unless you understand the language or unless you're able to get into the social context of this particular telling,
you're not going to understand it,
you will
really.
not understand. Oh, it's like Kathakali. If it is presented in its complete form, beautiful, visually stunning, but you would lose it unless you're able to make that connect. So I think from the INCO Center, our work has always been about looking at how we can continue to look at the traditional relevance of something, but how does it travel? When it travels, what happens?
What happens to it, right. Now, you were talking about visual arts. I haven't heard you say very much about interaction in the area of television. I do know that there are some Korean serials, and as a preparation for our meeting today, I talked to quite a lot of people, and a lot of people said to me that they absolutely love watching Korean serials. So I'm not hearing enough from you, being a television person, I'm not hearing enough from you about interaction in that area.
I think that's because it's very, very early days yet as far as links in television is concerned. We have Arirang TV, which parts of the Northeast can see.
Okay.
And in Delhi, there are certain Korean serials which have been, it's being broadcast in Hindi.
Okay.
Dubbed into Hindi, and it's being broadcast. In the Northeast, it comes in Korean. And there are a number of people there who speak.
Really?
Physiognomy-wise as well, I think
Yes,
there's an incredible
very
link.
similar looking,
So
yes.
you have not so much in the south, but we've recently had a few requests from local companies here to interact with Korean companies in terms of buying rights to serials, making sure that their work is also shown, our work is also shown in Korea.
Outside.
So it's very, very early days yet. There's an interesting phenomenon called the Korean wave, which is apparently led by soap operas, led by K-pop, led by the b-boys and their dances. And that has gone across Southeast Asia, has hit parts of Europe, has really sort of taken over many parts of the US. In its original form, with all of these artists being huge celebrities, whether they're TV, serial stars, or whatever. In India, something very interesting has happened. It's come in, but it has morphed into something else. Being since it's not a homogeneous market, I think it has not yet found its feet.
Right. I'm going to ask you again, Rathi, to hold on a bit. And we're going to take a very short break once again and get back to this discussion that I'm having here with Rathi Jafer. So you please don't go anywhere.